Hello, everybody. My name is John Watkins. My broad-based technology is green industry, and this is my title slide for the Action Research Multimedia presentation. Uh, so my next slide is my problem statement, and my problem statement is basically talking about which abiotic and biotic factors that can affect green industry. It's a very broad spectrum. Abiotic factors, so those factors that are non-living, and biotic factors, which are living, play a key role in green industry. As far as green industry goes, we rely heavily on weather, we rely on elements, we rely on watering in the greenhouse. A lot of the classes are done outdoors, hence green industry. Trees are outside, so it makes sense that a lot of our classes are outdoors. And there's a lot of issues that come up: bad weather, students complaining about bad weather. The generation that we have today is not typically one that we grew up with. Maybe when we were younger, outside playing all the time, playing road hockey. It's everybody's sitting in front of their video games, their computers, and doing those type of things. So, yeah, basically my problem statement is just learning to speaking with other teachers and colleagues and students and finding ways to accommodate some of these situations that might come up in a green industry setting. Facilities are a big part of what happens and can really affect planning of classes. If you don't have the proper tools, especially with tech ed, um, teaching can be very difficult at times. So my next slide is my statement of the research problem. So like I was talking on before, my research topic is about the abiotic and abiotic factors that affect green industry. Many factors that come up. Like I said, it's a very broad spectrum. I did talk about the weather and how a lot of classes are going to take place on school grounds, but other factors that come into effect as well is trying to control temperature in the green room, maybe especially in winter when those temperatures can affect tropical plants. So, the ways of looking at when the school shut down is how can we regulate that heat, during winter break? Who would be in charge of that? Is it something you can talk to the janitor about to regulate those type of things? Is it something that, they're trying to conserve on energy and electricity, so are a lot of things out, because we might need artificial light as well. There might not be enough sunlight for those type of plants as well. Proper watering, especially during holidays and time off. Proper watering of plants is something that's huge in green industry. As far as students, just training them to do it properly. I've seen kids watering plants with boiling water. I've seen plants that are, severely super, super cold water, which puts the shock in, can shock plants. So, just overall looking at some of these situations and how you can communicate with students and staff and peers and look at ways to really alleviate some of these problems. Is it a watering system? When that comes down to budgeting and funding. Of course, the teacher coming in on their off time and trying to regulate the plants as well, or maybe even asking students to volunteer or other staff, custodians, those type of things as well. So, the key situation is to try to find alternative methods to accommodate all these situations. And like I say, funding can be an issue, but there's also ways to be creative to work around these problems as well. I also found with this project as well, I've been making a lot of changes going along as per feedback from my partner Mark Cleric in our feedback journal, and as well from the instructor. So I just have some notes in my slides as well too, maybe some of the things that I have changed. So I did, added more to this slide specifically and how it does affect students' learning and finding alternative ways to overcome these obstacles. My next slide is my research question. So my research question, I also did change the format of this as per feedback from the instructor. So how do I approach exploring best practices for overcoming factors affecting the green industry classroom. Here are some definitions that are relevant to green industry. So ecosystem, which ecosystem is a community of living organisms in conjunction with the non-living components of their environment interacting as a system. Abiotic, the term abiotic, so parts of the ecosystem that are not alive. So that comes into facility structure, those type of things. Biotic, parts of the ecosystem are alive. Obviously, green industry is a lot of biotic factors come into effect. So living things such as plants, organisms, decomposition, pests, funguses, so many different things that come into factor under that term as well. And then, of course, the term green industry, how to care and manage for your natural living resources, which is something that I'm very passionate about. Green industry, for people who say, like, who cares about trees and stuff like that, I always joke around. I'm like, well, do you like to breathe? Do you like to eat? Well, if you like those things, then you should love green industry because it's imperative for our future and it's imperative for all those things. So in this slide, I also added green industry as a term as per instructor feedback. The next few slides is my literature annotated bibliography. So my first one was a Wikipedia article, and it was on outdoor education. So this is something I was touching on a little bit briefly before. So this article talks about outdoor learning, which supports, confidence in using the natural environment. The article touches on how being outdoors can benefit students for a more active lifestyle. I was talking previously about this is a different generation. Everybody's used to being inside on their computers. This is something with green industry. We really want to get them out there. We want to get them active. We want to get them healthy. We want them to expose them to fresh air, expose them to the trees, get them excited about learning. And this article touches on a lot of those things. Outdoor education emphasizes on many areas and can improve problem solving, enhance teamwork, develop leadership skills, and an overall understanding of our natural environments. Studies have shown in the past that education, not only being outdoors, outdoor education, not just for green industry, but it's beneficial for many other things: reading, writing, math, social interactions, and those type of things as well. So, there's several trends being physical fitness and those type of things, and physically active and being outdoors, so it really does touch on that. My next resource for my bibliography was, 10 Ways to Green Your School, and that's from J.H. Fairless, was the author of this article. So this article basically focused on how the environment is falling through the cracks of educational planning. It's as I'm hearing more and more, green industry is very limited. I'm told that the chances of me getting a full-time job are slim to none. But I'm not going to believe that. I'm going to put it out there. If a school program doesn't already have green industry, then you know what? Another option could be to start a green industry program. So that's the way I'm looking at it. I'm trying to be positive and. So like I say, this article is talking about green space inside the schools, like just the visual things and the overall health, the toxicity of buildings. So having green space in school, green walls, plants, large plants in the school system, in the foyer, in the classes, like not only aesthetically does it look good overall for your health, it's visually appealing, and it's also good for the overall air consumption, and it also talks about the toxic materials used in schools, the types of fertilizers, salts, which are very corrosive to trees, those type of things, and basically the kids of today are our future leaders. So, like maybe thinking of alternatives. How do you green your school? Do you talk about a green club for students? You talk about carpooling, cycling, recycling programs, those type of things that can be integrated into a school system. I did make some changes on as far as these citations. I'm not an expert by any means, so I'm just trying my best from the feedback that our instructor has given us, and hopefully it's enough. And then my final resource is green schools as learning laboratories. I found this an interesting article. So this article basically emphasized the importance of investments in green infrastructure. So this comes from funding of overall buildings and just having the facilities and tools to do the work and make a healthy work environment, not only for the teachers but for the students as well. When you don't have the structure or the funding for certain programs, learning it can be tough. It can be tough to deal with. It can be very hard and cause low morality as far as trying to come up with lesson plans. It's like you're 10 steps backwards when like say I don't have a greenhouse at all. It would almost find it very difficult to be able to run a green industry program with that. So that's what that article touches on. So, my literature summary just basically summarizes all these things, all these three articles and how they intertwine with each other. So, having the proper tools and resources is imperative for green industry and students, teachers, but it's not always there, the budgeting. So trying to find alternatives to this as well, right? Um, and then it also touches on what a lot of these articles touch on is basically concerns for liability. Parents get overprotective. They want to protect their kids. They're worried if their kids are going to go outside, or they're going to be introduced at the cold, are they going to fall down, they're going to injure themselves. It's something that you have to think about liability and injury, and as a teacher, safety is always our number one concern. They also talk about the weather conditions and how that comes into play. And teaching in green industry and weather conditions is huge. But from my experience growing up and going to college and stuff, no such thing as bad weather. It's not being prepared for bad weather. So educate these kids, get them excited, just as long as they're prepared for being outside and being dressed up appropriately. Always watch for slips, trips, and falls, proper safety, things to look at. And then it also talks about incorporating certain things in a non-toxic environment. So that could be dealing with pests. You could be promoting butterfly gardens, bee conservation. You could also do biological control, which is a non-pesticide way of looking how to get control of pests in our environment. As you see and you read along, I'm running short on time. That I have made some changes and I kept them in the slide here as well. So as per instructor, and I tried to make as many changes as I could. Literature summary continued. It's just basically retouching on all the things that I was talking about previously in these articles. The focus of the biotic and abiotic factors and all these significant factors that come into effect. So my research action plan. My data sources, I thought about using lesson plans. So by viewing lesson plans and validate the significance of the lesson, logs, a student daily log, like it's a huge part of a green industry marks, because that's something daily I can evaluate the students. We can in the green room setting and talk about the biotic and abiotic growth and how these kids are helping or what they're doing in class is something I can daily keep track of. And having daily checklists can be reconciled every day to help maintain the standards that are required for green industries classroom as well. The triangle validity and reliability. So, that's just tying all these sources together, that they feed off one another, and they're valid and reliable sources as far as that's concerned. Participants and settings. The lesson plans that will be used in the green industry classroom will be generated by the teacher, will be collected and selected for sequential binder logs. So like I was talking about, daily logs and checklists as well. Of course, ethical considerations. So privacy is always an issue. So, for my lesson plans, that's something I would always, something I would keep secure, physically locked up. There's a certain timeline for my daily lesson plans, my student logs. It's all, and that all that information will be collected over a semester. And my closure overall, I found